In the shadow of the looming Second World War, one act of aggression altered the course of history forever. Imagine a nation, once vibrant with democratic promise, now under the dark cloud of invasion. Today, we journey back to March 1939, to a time when the world watched in disbelief as Germany invaded Czechoslovakia, move that not only shattered a fledgling democracy, but also set Europe on the path to war. Stay with us as we unravel the gripping story behind this pivotal moment. After the devastation of World War I, Europe was forced to redraw its borders. Amidst this reorganization, the newly formed state of Czechoslovakia emerged in 1918, a beacon of hope for democracy in Central Europe. Home to diverse ethnic groups and a rich cultural heritage, Czechoslovakia symbolized progress in a continent scarred by conflict. However, the seeds of discord were sown even at its inception. With economic instability and nationalist sentiments simmering under the surface, the country faced challenges from within and from its more aggressive neighbor, Nazi Germany. By the early 1930s, as Adolf Hitler's ambitions grew, the world began to sense that the fragile peace in Europe was under threat. Historical quote: "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Franklin D. Roosevelt, used here to evoke the era's tension, even as FDR's words remind us of resilience in the face of terror. As the 1930s progressed, Adolf Hitler set his sights on reclaiming territories he deemed as historically German. The Sudetenland, a region of Czechoslovakia with a predominantly ethnic German population, became the focal point of his expansionist agenda. Caught between rising nationalist fervor and international appeasement policies, Europe found itself at a crossroads. In 1938, the crisis reached its boiling point. Nazi Germany demanded the annexation of the Sudetenland, claiming that the ethnic Germans there were being oppressed by the Czechoslovak government. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, in a bid to avoid another catastrophic war, engaged in tense negotiations. The result was the Munich Agreement deal that ceded the Sudetenland to Germany in exchange for Hitler's promise of no further territorial demands. Although hailed by some as a triumph of diplomacy, the Munich Agreement was a Pyrrhic victory. As Chamberlain famously declared, "Peace for our time," the promise of lasting peace quickly dissolved. The agreement not only emboldened Hitler's ambitions but also left Czechoslovakia vulnerable. In hindsight, it became clear that appeasement was a dangerous gamble with history. Historical fact: the Munich Agreement, signed on September 30, 1938, is often seen as one of the most infamous examples of appeasement in history. Within months, the very act of ceding territory paved the way for complete occupation. As the 1930s progressed, Adolf Hitler set his sights on reclaiming territories he deemed as historically German. The Sudetenland, a region of Czechoslovakia with a predominantly ethnic German population, became the focal point of his expansionist agenda. Caught between rising nationalist fervor and international appeasement policies, Europe found itself at a crossroads. In 1938, the crisis reached its boiling point. Nazi Germany demanded the annexation of the Sudetenland, claiming that the ethnic Germans there were being oppressed by the Czechoslovak government. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, in a bid to avoid another catastrophic war, engaged in tense negotiations. The result was the Munich Agreement deal that ceded the Sudetenland to Germany in exchange for Hitler's promise of no further territorial demands. Although hailed by some as a triumph of diplomacy, the Munich Agreement was a Pyrrhic victory. As Chamberlain famously declared, "Peace for our time," the promise of lasting peace quickly dissolved. The agreement not only emboldened Hitler's ambitions, but also left Czechoslovakia vulnerable. In hindsight, it became clear that appeasement was a dangerous gamble with history. Historical fact: the Munich Agreement, signed on September 30, 1938, is often seen as one of the most infamous examples of appeasement in history. Within months, the very act of ceding territory paved the way for complete occupation. Fast forward to March 15, 1939, a day that would forever alter the destiny of Czechoslovakia. With the Sudetenland already lost, Nazi Germany turned its sights to the remaining regions. In a swift and decisive move, German troops marched into Bohemia and Moravia. Overnight, the country was transformed from a proud, independent nation into a puppet state under Nazi control. The creation of the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia marked not only a physical occupation, but also the beginning of systematic oppression and terror. In a chilling broadcast, Adolf Hitler justified the invasion as a necessary step to protect ethnic Germans and secure Germany's future. Yet, behind the rhetoric lay an insidious plan to expand Nazi influence and dismantle any semblance of democratic governance in Central Europe. As one historian noted, this invasion was not merely territorial, it was ideological, designed to reshape Europe in the image of Nazism. Historical. Quote, "It is by deeds, not words, that we shall be remembered." A sentiment echoed by many contemporaries witnessing the ruthless efficiency of Nazi military strategy. As German tanks rolled into Prague and the surrounding regions, the international community was forced to confront the stark reality. The peace built on fragile compromises had been shattered. The invasion of Czechoslovakia was not an isolated event, it was the spark that lit the powder keg of European tensions, leading inexorably to the outbreak of World War II. The repercussions of Germany's invasion of Czechoslovakia were profound and far-reaching. The act not only dismantled a democratic state, but also sent shockwaves throughout Europe. Many saw it as the beginning of a larger, more dangerous conflict tone that would engulf the entire continent within a few short years. For the people of Czechoslovakia, the consequences were immediate and brutal. Political leaders were arrested, intellectuals silenced, and cultural life suppressed. The new regime systematically eroded freedoms, imposing strict censorship and harsh penalties on dissent. It was a stark demonstration of how quickly a nation's destiny could be altered by the ambitions of a single power. In the aftermath, international opinion was divided. While some nations remained paralyzed by fear of further escalation, others began to mobilize against the Nazi threat. Historians argue that the invasion of Czechoslovakia was the final domino in a series of aggressive moves that would culminate in a global war. The lessons learned from this episode would later shape post-war policies and the framework of international cooperation. Historical fact: the occupation led to the establishment of numerous resistance movements within Czechoslovakia. These brave groups not only challenged Nazi authority, but also laid the groundwork for the eventual liberation efforts in 1945. Today, the legacy of that dark chapter is remembered not just for its political consequences, but also for the indomitable spirit of those who dared to resist oppression. As one survivor later recounted, "In the darkest hours, hope is the only light that can lead us through the storm." Behind every historical event are countless personal tales of loss, courage, and resilience. Consider the story of Jan Novak, a factory worker in Prague whose life was upended by the invasion. Overnight, his family was torn apart by fear and uncertainty. Yet, amidst the chaos, Jan found strength in small acts of defiance, sharing forbidden books, whispering hope in secret meetings, and even risking his life to help a neighbor escape the clutches of oppression. Jan's story, like those of many others, reminds us that history is not just about dates and political manivers, it's about the human experience. The courage displayed by ordinary citizens in the face of overwhelming terror continues to inspire generations. Their stories serve as a timeless reminder that even in the bleakest moments, the human spirit can triumph over adversity. In reflecting on these personal accounts, we see how the invasion of Czechoslovakia impacted not only a nation's political landscape, but also the lives of millions. It is a story of loss and resiliency, a story that continues to echo in the collective memory of Europe and the world. Historical quote: "History will be kind to me, for I intend to write it." Winston Churchill. As we conclude this journey through one of history's most consequential invasions, we invite you to join our community of history enthusiasts. If you found this exploration of Czechoslovakia's tragic yet inspiring story enlightening, please hit the like button, subscribe for more in-depth historical documentaries, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts on the impact of appeasement and resistance during these turbulent times. Your engagement not only fuels our passion for uncovering history, but also helps us bring forward more stories that remind us of our shared past. Remember, every historical lesson carries with it the power to shape a better future. In closing, the invasion of Czechoslovakia stands as a powerful testament to both the dangers of unchecked ambition and the resilience of the human spirit. It is a story that challenges us to remember, to learn, and ultimately, to act so that the tragedies of the past are never repeated. As you reflect on these events, ask yourself, what would you have done in the face of tyranny? And how can we, as a global community, ensure that the lessons of history guide us toward a more just and peaceful future? Stay curious, stay vigilant, and remember that every chapter of history is a call to action. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep seeking the truth behind our past. If you appreciate deep dives into history, hit subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and join the discussion in the comments below. Share your insights on how the lessons from the past continue to shape our world today.